and kind of had a hectic week. Um, so, as you can see from the title, I'm not the only one in my family who deals with mental illness. My mother is bipolar, manic depressive, paranoid schizophrenic. And for mostly as much as her whole life as I can remember, she's dealt with major mania, um, insomnia, of course, the paranoia. And for years, she sought help. Um, she was on several medications. Some worked temporarily, some didn't. Um, but for the most part, she's struggled tremendously. By the way, sorry about my hair sticking up. Got it in a pony today, and the bangs are going crazy. But back to the story. So she struggled a lot. For the most part, she would isolate or run away. I mean, literally. There were times in my childhood where she would leave us 5 children at home and disappear. Um, Weeks later, come back and she had been on vacation. It's definitely not a part of my life that I like rethinking about, but something who made me who I am. Um, she also was a very, very severe functioning alcoholic. Um, she would self-medicate using drugs and alcohol. Um, Sorry, this is going to be a tough story to tell. She would get drunk or high and become physically abusive, mentally, verbally abusive. And for the longest time, I blamed her because I didn't understand why. And then as I got older and I started experiencing mental illness myself, it became more clear. She also had a very rough childhood. Um, I don't want to get too deep into her personal story, but I just want to tell my story of what's been going on this past week and just a basic short backstory of some of the things she's dealt with. So, here, I guess about 6 months ago, she had her own apartment. She's on disability. And then one day, a switch flipped and she literally just walked away with the clothes on her back, left everything behind, and we very seldom heard from her for about 2 months. And one day she called my brother and a friend and said, I'm losing it. I need your help. Please come get me. And she was in a different city. So they drove that night and picked her up and brought her home to me. And we talked about what she wanted to do, what her next step was. And bear in mind, my mother, in the past years, I mean, I can't even count how many years, has never ever wanted to seek help. So when she came to me and said, it's time, My heart broke for her. She was ready. She was ready to get the help. So I automatically started that day searching, trying to find any way that we could get her into a mental hospital, or sorry, a behavioral hospital. Um, so we tried different things. We tried contacting Crisis Line. We tried contacting the local mental health center. We tried several different options. And then all of a sudden it clicked for me that she has insurance. Why don't we just go to the local behavioral hospital and see about getting her in? So I gave them a call and we did all the paperwork online or over the phone, sorry. Um, they approved everything, had a bed waiting, everything fell together so smoothly. It was almost unbelievable. But as they say, if it's too easy to be true, it just might be. And that's exactly what happened. So we arrived there about 10:30 that evening. Um, Sat and waited for about an hour or so. And then the RN of admissions came and spoke to me and said, "We have an issue. Due to her Medicaid being traditional Medicaid, they could not take her. The only way to take her would be to call the local mental health care center, have them come out, do a crisis assessment, and go from there. If they determined that she was definitely in crisis and suicidal, they could do an EDO, an emergency detention order, and hospitalize her." So we waited and waited and waited and waited. Now I understand there were more crises going on, and at that moment she was in a safe place. So they dealt with the other crisis calls, but they did not show up until almost 11 a.m. the following day. Yes, almost 13 hours. So we, of course, waited patiently, which is very hard for my mother to do. She's got very bad anger management and gets very frustrated very, very easily. So we were patient. We waited. Well, they finally arrived, and I had fallen asleep. And my mom didn't wake me up because she knew I was exhausted, which I really wish had happened because it may have prevented the following things that happened. So the Betty Hardwick, I'm sorry, I should not have said that. The mental health center crisis person, I can't think of the exact term, did my mother's evaluation, and the main question that was asked to my mother was, do you want to harm yourself? Are you suicidal? My mother, I don't want to harm myself, but I am very suicidal. And unfortunately, which completely blew my top and angered me to a level of no other, The crisis person put down that my mother was not suicidal and that she was not in psychosis, and recommended 3 days of respite for some well-needed rest. As any of you who have ever dealt with a paranoid schizophrenic or someone with bipolar manic depression or even just mental illness in general, that was not the answer. So we fought it for a little while, but eventually decided to go ahead and send her to the respite center and fight the next day again. So the next day I got on the ball. I called crisis again. I contacted the local mental health center. I contacted suicide hotlines. I contacted people on Facebook. I contacted 741-741 and text them. And I, due to my mother not being with me physically and her being in a quote unquote safe place, I couldn't do anything. So I spoke with my mother. I let her know what was going on. I contacted the respite place where she was staying, and they said that they were taking her to a mental health care facility to go pick up medications for her psychosis and all her illnesses. So I thought, okay, good, relief. So they take her, and instead of anyone staying there with her, assuming it's a safe place, they just dropped her off. Well, my mother contacted me hysterical, saying they had no idea why she was there, who she was, anything. So, once again, she's in crisis mode, telling me that she's literally going to harm herself, and that's saying it pleasantly, right there. And so I immediately hang up with her and call the center. I let them know. I'll contact the police department, let them know, and they get there. Well, due to my mother being a runner, before anyone arrived or could find her, she disappeared. So for several hours that day, we didn't know where she was. We couldn't find her, had no idea where she would have gone. So I, of course, was in distress myself at this point. And in order to avert going into crisis, I took my medication and I laid down, and please don't judge me, but I took a nap. Because at this point, I knew there was absolutely nothing I could do. Police couldn't find her. Nobody could find her. So I waited it out, praying that she would just call me. So I wake up from my nap, and I had missed 3 phone calls. So I contacted the phone number, and it was my mother. She had walked from the center clear across town. In the meanwhile, she had stopped at 3 different places. And I'm so sorry, but this is where I'm going to get severely, excuse my language, but pissed off. She went into three public businesses, very well-known businesses, and begged and pleaded for them to call 911 so she would not harm herself. And they flat out refused. Yes, I said refused. So she walked again. She walked to our local Salvation Army, which is approximately 5 miles away from where she originally started. Keep in mind, my mother is 57 years old, and it was 100 degrees outside. So she arrives at the Salvation Army and asks them to call 911. They immediately do, which I am eternally grateful for. So they call 911. My mother's transported by ambulance to the local emergency room, where she is reevaluated by the crisis interventionist. I'm sorry about the wording. I can't think straight today on what it's called. But anyways, they reevaluate her. They say, yes, she is in severe psychosis. She needs help. She's absolutely suicidal. And thank you for prayers from everyone that I know that lifted her up. She is safe. She is in our local behavioral hospital receiving treatment. I've been to visit her, and when I saw her, she was still pretty out of it due to some medications for anxiety. But, and I'm sorry if I get emotional, but today I woke up and I had a missed call and a voicemail. And so I checked my voicemail, and it was my mom. And all I could think was, thank you, God. Because she said, baby girl, they gave me my medicines, the one I needed, and I feel better. She was like, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better. She said, tell your brothers and sisters and everybody else that I'm coming home. Not yet, because I still need help. She goes, but I'm gonna be okay and I'm coming home. And to anyone out there who's ever dealt with someone suicidal, you can imagine those words. Peace and love and gratefulness that comes with those words. For years now, all I've heard is, I'm worthless. I don't want to live anymore. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares. And to finally hear her say, I'm gonna be okay. Those words are only heaven sent. So, if you or anyone you know is dealing with suicidal thoughts or ideations or hallucinations or anything like that, I am begging you, do not give up the fight. You're worth it. My mother is worth it. Never give up. Keep fighting, because there is someone listening. There are millions listening. In the description, I will try to leave some links for several contacts that you can reach out to. But for now, I'll name a few in case I can't link them. You can dial help, speak, any words really, to 741-741, and someone will contact you within minutes and speak to you until you are done or ready to quit talking. For those of you who don't really want to verbally speak. On Facebook, there's a site called Suicide Awareness/Prevention. They are amazing. I contact them almost daily. Contact your local police department. Contact the local mental health center. Contact anyone who will listen. And if you are suicidal, please, please go straight to an emergency room. Let them know and they will help you. I'm so sorry for whatever anybody is going through, but I pray that you get the help that you need. I know this video has gone so long, but I needed this story to get out. I hope that this never happens to anyone, and I hope that you get the help that you need the very first time you ask. No one deserves to be let down. I just pray that, above all, reach out, speak out, don't give up. Please give this video a thumbs up. I hope you'll subscribe. And everyone have a blessed day and stay safe. Love y'all.